So the second subject that we're going to be covering is called relevant costs. So in relevant costs, there are two scenarios. There is add drop, and there is make buy. So in add drop scenarios, you're basically looking at a product, and generally it's one where the profit is bad, and you're saying, okay, so maybe we should just stop making this product. So you're determining whether you should keep making the product or stop making the product. In make or buy situations, you're looking at a product and you're deciding to make it, and that might be going well and all. However, somebody may come up to you and offer you to make that same product at a smaller price. So you have to decide whether to keep making the product or to buy the product instead. So in these types of problems, you may think, like specifically for add drop problems, you may think that obviously if the profit is in the negatives, then you would drop it. However, if this is more so in the short to medium term, this isn't in the long term. So in the short to medium term, if you drop a product, not all of the costs associated with that product will leave. So say you sell bracelets for $6 and the rent that you make those bracelets in for the factory is $7. So if you stop making the bracelets, you're going to lose all $6 of your revenue. However, you're going to keep $7 of your costs. So even though you're initially making a negative profit, if you stop making the bracelets, you're going to lose even more money. So in both of these situations, there are two alternatives. The first alternative in add drop is to continue making the product. The first alternative in make buy is to just make the product. The second alternative in add drop is to drop the product, and the second alternative in make buy is to buy the product instead of making it. So just getting into some vocabulary, remember when I said that say you drop a product, some of the costs may stay. Any costs that stay or anything that stays between the two alternatives, so if that cost exists in both alternatives, and then it is considered irrelevant. So fixed costs are generally irrelevant because they don't matter in decision making because they stay between both alternatives. However, if one cost exists in one alternative but goes away in the other, then it's considered relevant. Let's take material costs, for example. If you're making a product and you stop making it, so you stop selling it, and you decide to drop the product, most of the time your material costs will also go away. You won't have to worry about those anymore. They're considered relevant costs then. So now to do those and actually get into it, I recommend building these charts. So for add drop, I recommend listing to the side your revenue, your costs, and your profit, subsequent profit. So we start with a positive $4 and then your negative variable cost, fixed cost, and as we see from this, your profit is negative $1. So we're thinking about dropping this line because it's making us a negative profit. So what we want to do is we want to start with our OG column. So this is alternative 1. This is if we decide to just keep the product as it is. And then we're going to make 2 columns for our second alternative, or dropping the product. And so for these 2 columns, we want to list all the costs that go away in one column and list everything that stays, or all the relevant versus irrelevant costs. Okay, so in this example, if you drop it, then obviously all the revenue will leave, so $4 goes away. And if you drop it in this example, somewhere it would say that $2 in variable costs would go away, and therefore $1 would stay. And one thing to note too is that the sum of these 2 columns, so the sum, will equal the original column in all examples. So Now, the fixed costs in this example were $2. So $1 would go away and $1 would stay. One thing I recommend is to keep all costs in parentheses so that you know they're negatives no matter which column they are. Sometimes students will say, okay, well, if a cost is leaving, then that's technically positive. And yes, that is true. That's a good thing. But just for the sake of this problem, we want to keep all costs negative and all profits and revenue positive profits and revenues positive. So in this example, again, we said $4 in revenue is leaving, $2 in variable costs are leaving, and $1 in fixed costs are leaving. Therefore, a positive $1 in profit is going away. That is really, really bad because we're losing $3 in costs, which is good, but we're losing $4 in profit, which is bad in revenue. So therefore, we're losing a positive $1 in profit. So in these problems, I always say just look for the goes away pile. And if the profit is positive, then you do not want to drop it because you don't want to drop a positive profit. Or another way to think about it is to look at the stays pile and see what amount of profit will stay. In this case, you'll keep negative $2 in profit, which is even less than the negative $1 in profit you originally were making. Therefore, in this example, you do not want to drop the product. So, in make-buy examples, it's super similar to add drop, except this time you're only caring about the costs. You don't care about revenue or profit. So you want to list out all the costs, and then you want to list out the total cost. Again, you want to make your alternative 1, which is your OG, or in this case, you're going to make it, and then your 2 columns for alternative 2, which is if you buy it. So in this case, it says it's $5 in original cost for cost 1. It'll say $2 goes away and $3 stays. Again, we want to keep these all negative and do the so-and-so. And at the very end, we want to look at the pile that goes away. And so we want to look at the pile that goes away and look at the total amount of costs that leave. In this case, $9 in costs in total will go away if we decide to buy this product. So what we're going to do then is compare it to the price of actually buying it. So we know that $9 in cost will go away if we buy it, and they'll give us that the price of the product is $8. So if you're getting rid of $9 in costs, or otherwise, if you're saving $9 and you're buying it for $8 because you're saving $9, which is more than 8, then you're technically saving $1 per item. Again, because you're saving $9 in costs, but you're incurring a new cost of $8, you're saving $1 per item if you buy it. Therefore, you want to buy it. Because this would be good for you. And one small thing to note, at the bottom here, this might not make sense now, but we'll run across this in our practice problem, is that say they tell you that cost 2 goes away after the first year, you want to consider it as going away. So you could still consider the $7, even though in the first year it doesn't go away. That's because we're looking in terms of like the short to medium term. So if it goes away after the first year, then even though it may be a bad idea to buy it in the first year, in the subsequent years you may be saving money. So that's just something to note. And now we'll kind of dive into an example for relevant costs.